Year-to-date, single-family home sales in March was 1,875 compared to 2,107 last year, and this is an 11% decrease. Single-family building permits year-to-date issued were 535 compared to, it was 455 compared to 535, and this is a 15% decrease. Total retail sales for Johnson County through February 2022 were $2.7 billion compared to $2.4 billion through February of last year, and this is a 10% increase. And with that, Chairman, I stand for questions.
Okay, questions? All right. Next item, I believe, is a report from our auditor in regards to the performance audit of the motor vehicle refunding process.
Good afternoon. Harry Heflin, Audit Services, Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager, and staff. This afternoon, we're here to present to you the audit of the motor vehicle refund process. And for that audit, I will turn that over to Michael Iglinski.
I was going to say good morning, but good afternoon. I'm Mike Iglinski, Audit Services. I'll try to get through this pretty quick. So we did an audit of motor vehicle refund process, and this first slide is the overall conclusion, and I'm just going to read it. That Treasury Taxation in Vehicles, or TTV, designed and follows a process to ensure accurate refunds and reduce the risks of errors, misuse, or fraud. We did not make any recommendations. I'll give you a little bit of background, though, and talk a little bit about the process. I can change the slide. There we go. So people can get a motor vehicle refund when they come in and request it after, for example, selling a car or otherwise transferring the car. When you register your car, you pay in advance. So I registered my car this month, and I paid the taxes for the next 12 months. If I were to sell that car after, say, 6 months, no longer own the property, I can come to the county and request a refund of the portion that I've already paid in advance. So that's the kind of logic of the process. It's governed by state statute, and the state, in fact, does the actual calculations of the amount of the refund. Last year, the county refunded about $2 million. An average refund, which included fees, registration fees, as well as the property taxes, was $130.
I didn't catch that last number.
$130 is the average amount of.
Okay, thank you.
So.
It's in the audit report, I think. Yeah.
So we've got a really simplified sketch of the process here. It starts with somebody who used to own the car coming in and applying for a refund. And you go to the Treasury Taxation and Vehicles Motor Vehicle Office, and you fill out a form, you bring some paperwork, you bring the license that you had on the vehicle, and you submit all that. At the Motor Vehicle Office, they input that information. Information is then used by the state process, the state software, to calculate the refund amount. You're not then paid right away. You don't get the cash right then. The documents and the computer files all go over to the Treasury Taxation and Vehicles accounting staff. They'll then review, are the documents there? Is the information accurate? And decide that yes, assuming it is, yes, this is okay to pay. That then is transferred over to Financial Management and Administration Department and their accounts payable, and they'll issue the check. The gray shading in the diagram here are the areas that were subject to audit. So we did not go to the state and audit their process, and we did not audit Financial Management and Administration. We did, however, verify a number of payments that they were to the right person, to the right address, to the right amount, and that the checks cleared. So we looked overall at the design of the process, the sort of controls put in place to reduce the risks. And this table is summarizing what I've called major control activities. So these are the things that Treasury Taxation and Vehicles has put in place to make the process sound. On the right column, then you get a yes or no answer. After we looked at the design, is there evidence that in fact they are following that process in 2021? and we confirmed that the things that they said they were doing and that were controls that were designed, there's evidence that they were in place. That said, as we were doing the work, we did identify a problem. We found a number of duplicate refunds. So a duplicate refund would be if I had applied and got, over the next month or two, whatever, 2 checks for when I was entitled to 1. And that happened 6 times in 2021. We shared this information with management and looked into what had happened. The bullet points there kind of explain it, and importantly, the steps that they took. And so the steps that they took were they identified the cause as being some miscommunication within the department, I think, and then did some additional training. So if we were looking at 2022, that list of control activities would now have another item. It would have training to identify and prevent duplicate payments. So that's the overall summary. I'm returning to the overall sort of message, and happy to answer questions.
Well, Michael, let me ask you this. This morning, there was some comment, as I understand it, was not real clear, that somehow state statute was not being followed in this process. Can you speak to that, or if Brent Christensen or perhaps Mr. Thompson can speak to that issue?
I can speak to that, but I think it might be better for a lawyer to speak to that. And I think either Peg Trent or Bob Ford could probably talk about that.
Mr. Chairman, Peg Trent, Chief Counsel. Also present in the hearing room today is one of our attorneys, Bob Ford, with the legal department. And this issue came forward back in 2019. A legal opinion was requested by taxation in order to make sure that process was clear under state statute. At that time, Mr. Ford provided a solid legal opinion. And then when this came forward, because Mr. Franzen wanted to have clear direction on how that statute would be interpreted and processed, he followed the direction of the legal department and complied with that decision. My understanding, as was explained by Michael, there are 2 funds. One is for your license plate taxes, one is for your personal property taxes on your motor vehicle. Each has a different date of which the state calculates those refunds from. The personal property is from the date of sale. There's documentation that is submitted that shows when the date. I think the public comments, they indicated that you could just pick a date when you have to have documentation as to the sale date. And the other latter one with your license plate, the date is when you make application. From the statute, the system that is used with which was not audited from the state, you have to have one date. So for both of them, so you have to pick which date. In order to be favorable to taxpayers and that the taxpayers were getting more of their refund than would be, you wouldn't get as much as a refund from your license plate, the date was chosen as to the date of the sale. And so that's been the date that's been utilized, at least since 19 and maybe longer, of the date in which was selected for refunds to be made. And so we are following state statute, but we are giving the benefit to the taxpayer in that regard as it relates to license plate. And when you take a step back and realize, what are we talking about? Because we want to encourage people to transfer and get their refund early after that sale. When you take a step back, we're only talking probably pennies per transaction that the county is looking in a difference.
But we are following state statute.
Correct.
Thank you. Other questions? Ms. Fast?
Yeah, so Tom knows me well from 2 years ago. My car, $350,000, go Honda CRV. I got a brand new car. And so I didn't think, when are people told about this refund? I thought when I got my new tag, they applied I thought when I got my new tag, they applied the refund then, or how would I have known about it? Is that the process? Is when I thought then they deducted from my new car? No?
I'll try to answer this, but the experts are there also. Of if you're transferring, you basically get credit when you register your new car. The story I was telling you was if you sold your car and didn't replace it, then you get the refund. The process is essentially the same. And The way people learn of it is you come in to register your new car, and you'll be told that, or you go to the webpage, the county webpage, right on the front page. There's a link to information about motor vehicle registration. It's pretty explanatory. Is that right? Do I hear any? Okay.
Okay. Mr. Ashcraft, could you speak up in your response, Michael?
I will do my
Thank you.
best.
Thank you, Mr. Glinsk. Commissioner Fast, you asked the right question, but I'd like to push it a little bit further. 15,000 approximately were refunded. Do we have estimates of how many refunds there should have been, and how close are we to meeting the customer's opportunity to get refunds? Is there a gap there of some description, and do we track that in any way?
Is that dependent upon the customer to make that request?
It would seem so, yes.
So if the customer does not make the request, then there is no refund, right?
Correct. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Tom Franzen, Treasury Taxation and Vehicles. And the Chairman is correct. It needs to be initiated by the customer. And as Mr. Glinski said, that usually happens when they're trading vehicles. On the off chance they are selling a vehicle outright, obviously they need to know about that. And usually they do know about it because others in the community will tell them, hey, you can get a refund if you fill out this form. And as Michael also mentioned, we've got it prominently displayed on the website, the vehicle guide that allows them to look at our frequently asked questions and learn about it that way as well.
So you feel the market is fairly well served?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. One last question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Heflin, I'd be interested in knowing what the audit budget was, both in terms of hours and costs for this report, and you can share that with me offline.
Okay.
I will.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara?
Actually, Michael asked the question. I was just wondering how much of a windfall that the county received by people not knowing about the refund. And sounds like, I don't know if we need to just put it on at kind of a bullet point that if you're selling a car outright and you're not replacing it, that you can get a refund. So I don't know if we need to add that or not.
Okay. Ms. Hanslick?
Thank you. First of all the information is on the website about how to get that refund. And I just want to make a shout out to Joe Lewis with the DMV. Joe has helped me many times with situations like helping people get a refund. And just a very quick story, was working with an older gentleman who has a disability, is no longer able to drive his car. He sold the car for $300. And he and I were talking, and he said, well, I don't think I have all the necessary paperwork, so I guess I can't get a refund. I said, oh, wait a minute. Anyway, reached out to Joe. He sent me the paperwork. I met with the constituent. We filled it out, returned it to Joe, and within an hour, Joe called me and said he will be getting a $25 refund. And he was thrilled because for him, $25 is a lot of money. So I do know that from personal experience that the DMV goes out of their way to make sure people who just anybody who is entitled to a refund will get it. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think it's important to reemphasize that the state is the agency that does the calculation of the refund. It is not our department. They send the appropriate information to the state, and that calculation then is provided. So, any other questions? Ms. Fast?
Yeah, Tom, you provided me, I had a constituent not happy about the fees, and I think that would be good information to send the entire commission, because I think there's an understanding, people think that we place all these fees on there, and it was definitely pretty clear to me, these were all state fees, not us.
Yeah. No, I think that response has been made many times to inquiries, but
Mr. Chairman, you want to tell them about the technology fee and what we went
I'm
through?
talking about the state fees.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I was just asking Tom you
Tom,
gave
you
me
can-
that information for my constituent to share it with everyone.
And
Why don't
thank
you
Commissioner Fast.
delineate those fees?
Absolutely. And the chairman brought it up last year because we had a customer that had called and wanted to talk about the fee structure as well. And as we have talked with the board about before, and we've used the Public Information Office to put out in our publications, basically that pie chart that shows roughly 85% of the fees that we collect, which is different than property tax. 85% of the fees we collect go off to the state, and they go to different parts of the state. We keep about 15% of that locally. So there's always been a concern about the county is getting the fees for registering the vehicles, and that really isn't the case. The county gets a very small piece of that. We did put some information on our website, I believe, the last time this came up, and I'll go back and make sure that we still have that and we can highlight that for people that might have questions.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? All right, Mr. Heflin, thank you very much. Appreciate your completion of this audit. Anything you want to leave us with?
Yes, there has been some interest. Harry Heflin, Audit Services again. Interest in our staffing. Right now we have 7 FTEs authorized. We have 4 on board. We are in the process now of hiring, interviewing, and we'll be hiring candidates for the next couple of weeks. So that will bring us up to full staff. It's
Okay.
just something I want to pass on to the board.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next item is legislative update. Mr. Thompson.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Maury Thompson, Deputy County Manager. My report is brief. As I believe you know, the legislature reconvened this past Monday for one day, so not a lot of action to report. 3 things I would draw your attention to. First, bills passed was House Bill 2136, which was the tax bill bundle. I just called that out this morning to let you know that the Atchison County sales tax issue appears to have been resolved. You may recall there's been concern over the last couple of years about the impact that debate in Atchison County about distribution and sharing of their sales tax could have inadvertently on other cities and counties in the state. So maybe we've got that issue resolved and we won't have to deal with that going forward. Secondly, the suicide prevention hotline 988. I know there's been a lot of support and questions about that. That issue was resolved as was anticipated. So as a reminder, that act would implement the established 988 Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Crisis Hotline in Kansas. The bill establishes the 988 Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Crisis Hotline Fund and directs already appropriated state general fund monies to be transferred to that hotline fund. As a reminder, the legislature had already appropriated, I believe it was $10 million. They hadn't taken care of the structure. That has now been in place. One question I was asked about that, if you were following legislative activity on Monday, that bill passed the House 112-6 and the Senate 25-2. And some have asked me, well, 25-2 is obviously well short of the total number. Well, we had a number, there were 2 no votes on that and 9 who were present and passed, who chose not to vote, and 4 were absent. So all accounted for in one way or the other. And then finally, a quick update on property tax. Again, this body's been very interested in that, in particular property tax relief for seniors. So Senate substitute for House Bill 2239 has been enacted, which is a property tax freeze. Legislature passed that bill giving property tax rebates for seniors 65 and older or disabled veterans whose total household income does not exceed $50,000. The homes can't be worth more than $350,000. The homeowner would get a rebate from the state in the amount between the increase in property taxes from the base year when they joined the rebate program or 2021, whichever is later. That was part of the larger tax bill that passed the Senate unanimously and 103-10 in the House, and the governor has signed that. So that is law in Kansas now. And then finally, as to your comprehensive review of the session, Mr. Federico and Durst will be with us here on June 9th, so 2 weeks from today, to present the culmination of the activity of the legislature and that report. So with that, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Any questions? Ms. O'Hara.
Just quickly, so this rebate is for all seniors over 65 or just disabled veterans?
For both of those categories,
Okay.
within the framework of income 50,000,
Right.
home value 350.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank
So
you.
is that,
Ms. Fast?
is that program still called the Homestead or Safe Seniors, or does it have a new, I mean, or can you email that out to us? Is that a new
Yeah.
title?
Well, and I've got more detail that I'll be happy to
Yeah,
send you all.
I'd appreciate it.
All right.
And will they kind of give us a comprehensive report of everything?
They will, and I will disclose, they've sent that this morning, so I'm reviewing it now.
Oh,
They
well,
wanted me to
so
go
they're
through it.
on the
So, yeah,
gun.
looks very good.
I think it should pertain to our legislative agenda.
And
Yeah, I wasn't,
With all the
wasn't,
activities that occurred.
yeah, I didn't mean everything. I meant.
no, I would actually, Cher, I was very pleased with that. That's the way they start out the report, tying it back to our legislative platform, showing action or lack thereof on our priorities. So,
Okay, all right, thank you.
thank you.
All right, I believe that concludes our reports and communications, so we'll turn to commission comments. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had an inquiry from a constituent that she was wondering why she did not see, and I do not remember, that we acknowledged Mother's Day. Have we ever done that before?
No.
Okay, so on our proclamations, we never acknowledge Mother's Day or Father's Day?
No. There are comments from the commissioners doing commission comment in regards to those, but we've never had a request.
Okay, so perhaps I should have this person write a request for this.
Okay?
Okay, and then second, the last 3 weeks I have been talking about my concern of a certain city that is not in compliance with all federal laws, and I do have a motion that I would like to make. I move that the Board of County Commissioners for Johnson County revise the policy and administrative procedures for the county assistance road system, funds, CARS, to add criteria that for a city to qualify for CARS fund, the city must be in compliance with all federal laws, including all federal immigration laws.
Okay.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. I would say this. I oppose this motion for the following reasons. Number one, the city that is under concern, is my understanding, is reviewing the action that was taken to make sure that it's consistent with state law. And secondly, the CARS program is a combination and cooperation with all of our cities. And you may recall that the CARS program consists of gasoline tax and a property tax. The gasoline tax is 43% of it is distributed directly to the cities. 57% comes directly to the county. And the agreement with the cities is that 100% of that 57% will go into the CARS program. So I think before any action is taken, we need to see what the result of activity by the city is. And secondly, we should not make knee-jerk changes in the CARS program without communication with the cities. And so for those reasons, I will oppose the motion. Ms. Hansley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also in opposition to that motion because I compare it to cutting off your nose to spite your face, because we all benefit from the road repairs that are made through CARS, and to carve out one particular city and not support those repairs seems extremely short-sighted. So I will be voting against that.
I would make this suggestion also. Every resident of a city pays property taxes into the CARS program. So to take action that would preclude any city from benefiting from that, I think is inappropriate at this time. Other comments? Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your observation. I don't think Commissioner O'Hara intends this motion to be a knee-jerk reaction, because she has diligently, I think she said for the last 3 or 4 meetings, raised the issue. And the foundation of the issue, the reason I seconded, is because I think we have a responsibility to be in compliance with federal laws in the things we do and support. If we have a community that's acting independently of that, I think that opens us up for questions in terms of how we purport ourselves in the exercise of those laws. So I'm supportive of the motion. I realize that we do not want to make arbitrary or capricious decisions, and I hope that the city in question will modify their position to be in line with federal law.
Okay, any other comments? If not, the motion is before us. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
No.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, no.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, no.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, no.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, no. I have 5 votes opposed, 2 in favor. Motion failed. Any other comments, Ms. O'Hara?
Nope, that's it.
All right, Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Chair. I attended the Workforce Partnership Chief Elected Officials meeting this week. Spent time at the KCATA board meeting, and I also listened to the Kansas Supreme Court dark store information that our county legal representative, I thought, just did an outstanding job. It was a little bit above my head at times, not always, but at times. And anyway, I was impressed with the procedures and keep our fingers crossed on the results.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of my schedule, Tuesday, I had the privilege of assisting the Airport Commission with hosting our Representative Sharice Davids at the Johnson County Railroad. I don't know if many people know that Johnson County has 2 airports, and we actually run a railroad too. And so Representative Davids was there highlighting the importance of that New Century Air or Commerce Center in terms of logistics and supply chain that impacts actually across the whole country. So that was, we even got to move the train, so that was pretty exciting. And I'd encourage others on this board to go down and experience that. Also had a MARC board meeting. We had the recognition this morning, and I'm very proud to serve as the second vice chair on the Mid-America Regional Council's executive committee. And something that wasn't mentioned this morning is that MARC is what's called an MPO. It's a federally required metropolitan planning organization, and they are throughout the country, and they serve as the conduit for a lot of federal funds for transportation and also for making regional decisions. Because as we know, roads don't stop and start at city or county boundaries. And then finally, I just wanted to mention, because we have been talking about housing so much, that Kansas Housing Resources Corporation currently has 2 very important funds to help people in our communities either pay rent or their mortgage. And one is called the Kansas Emergency Rent Assistance Fund, and the other is the Kansas Homeowners Assistance Fund. And that it's called CAF, K-H-A-F. It also helps with property taxes for qualifying individuals. So if you are interested, go to the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation website, and you'll get more information about how to apply. So thank you.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed Brian Pedic is in the audience. I was wondering if he could come to the microphone for a moment.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Is it his birthday?
Mr. Chairman, as you know, from time to time, I do scold us on our lack of protocol, and I will confess that I missed that last week was National Public Works Week, and I wanted to thank him and his crew. They do common things uncommonly well, and he takes grief and rebuff from not just the public, but from the commission from time to time, and he always does so professionally. And his team, I would say, truly represent us well in the public works environment. So, Brian, would you please share with your staff all the men and women that support you and support us? Thank you, and I'm sorry we missed it last week, but I'd rather be a little bit late than to forget altogether.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words, and I'll be sure to pass that on. They do work hard on and are devoted to our county and citizens. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much. Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Commissioner Ashcraft, thank you for doing that, because they do work hard, so I appreciate you making him come up. I thought maybe you were going to yell at him, so I was a little worried.
No condemnations.
I don't really have anything to report today, but I do want to mention, if we don't do the agenda review, it is public, and you can go online to get it if we don't make the agenda review today.
All right, Ms. Fast.
Yes, I just want to highlight last Friday, we had the Terry Zenner Memorial ceremony, the rededication. If you haven't been to the Johnson County Mental Health Center, there's a new garden, just a beautiful water fountain and lighting, and the flowers that will change every season. It's just an incredible memorial. It was just a wonderful service. Her husband, Matt, and his daughters came up from Texas. Terry's father was there. It's the 18th anniversary when Terry was murdered, providing case management services through our Johnson County Mental Health. So it was just an incredible service, but has reminded me that I am going to be speaking up again more about safety and security, which I did to staff today about an upcoming meeting that we can never, we always need to be vigilant about safety and security. So one of the things, I'm also on the MARC board. This week, there was a lot of conversation about broadband and digital access. MARC is working with Black and Beach to analyze how many residents in the greater metropolitan area lack digital access. 16,000 households in Johnson County do. 6,000 only have a smartphone. And so each month at the MARC, they've talked about federal funding opportunities. They've talked about the bipartisan infrastructure. There's funding for broadband and digital access. DOT has a number of competitive grants that we could access. We have in our CIP the traffic control tower, roads and bridges in that bipartisan infrastructure. So significant federal funds that NOVAs are being announced. So I will be bringing that up during our budget period, that we look at what are our staff resources and have staff look into this of how we can access. If we could access federal funding, that'd be $600,000 for our traffic control tower, or that short line rail needs repairs, so that infrastructure and DOT has significant funds that we could access. So I'll be bringing that up during presentation, that staff come forward with some proposals on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, Monday is Memorial Day. Our offices will be closed. I should note the short line railroad that was mentioned at New Century goes back to when the Olathe Naval Air Station was formed, and that short line railroad continues to provide services for the businesses who are located there. We do have a committee of the whole to continue budget discussion. The time is 1:40 p.m. We were to start at 1 p.m. What is the commission's consensus on doing the agenda review or having a cold agenda for next week? Any problems with the cold agenda next week?
No?
All right. So with that, we are adjourned, and our agenda review will not occur. We will have a cold agenda for consideration next week. Thank you all very much. And let's see if we can't reconvene in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and get started on our budget review. Thank you all very much.